The Indiana Fever have been making headlines left and right this offseason, and the latest bombshell, Erica Wheeler has finally broken her silence. With all eyes on Caitlin Clark and the Fever's massive rebuild, questions have been swirling about what's next for the veteran guard. Is she staying? Is she leaving? And what does this mean for Indiana's future? Well, Wheeler just dropped some game-changing statements, and let me tell you, this could shift everything for the Fever heading into the 2024 WNBA season. Stick around because we're diving deep into Wheeler's plans, her thoughts on Caitlin Clark, and what's really going on behind the scenes in Indiana. Let's get into it. The Indiana Fever are at the center of one of the biggest shifts in WNBA history. The addition of Caitlin Clark has completely changed the franchise's trajectory. And while all eyes are on the rookie phenom, there's another major storyline that can't be ignored. What's happening with Erica Wheeler? For years, Wheeler has been a veteran leader for the Fever, navigating through the ups and downs of a franchise that struggled to find its identity. But now, with Indiana transforming into a team everyone is watching, her role is suddenly in question. Is she staying? Is she looking for a bigger opportunity elsewhere? And how does she feel about Caitlin Clark taking over the spotlight? Erica Wheeler finally addressed all of these questions, and let me tell you, her comments reveal a lot about what's going on behind the scenes in Indiana. She's not just speaking as a player, she's speaking as someone who has seen it all, and she's got a lot to say about what the future holds. Being a lot older, 32, sounds crazy. And then just my mind, just kind of step away from basketball a little bit, just to kind of regrouping. I'm refreshed. I don't have these young legs no more. Why? I could just play 12 months, year round. Wheeler recently launched her own podcast, and her first guest, Kelsey Mitchell, one of the Fever's key players. From the moment the conversation started, you could tell this was going to be different from the usual media interviews. There was no filter, no scripted answers, just two players keeping it real about what's happening inside the organization. Right away, Wheeler made a statement that set the tone for everything. Indiana is the new Hollywood. Everybody wants to sit courtside. Everybody wants to see us play. That's a bold claim, but is she wrong? The Fever went from a team no one paid attention to, a team that was constantly at the bottom of the standings, to suddenly being the hottest ticket in the WNBA. Why? Caitlin Clark. Now, whether you love her or hate her, there's no denying that her impact is unmatched. Ticket sales, through the roof. Merch sales, breaking records. National attention, bigger than ever. Wheeler and Mitchell both acknowledge that Clark's presence has completely shifted the way people view the Fever, and unlike some players who have been hesitant to embrace the media frenzy around Clark, Wheeler gave her full credit. She has a big part of why the world is watching us. We gotta give her her flowers. That's not something you hear from every WNBA veteran. Some have been frustrated that Clark is getting so much attention, while other stars in the league have been grinding for years with barely any recognition. But Wheeler, she sees the bigger picture. For someone who has been in Indiana for years, this is a massive shift. For the first time in a long time, the Fever aren't just hoping to be relevant. They are relevant. That brings us to the biggest question. Where does Wheeler fit in? She's been the steady veteran presence in Indiana, guiding the younger players and helping to build a culture. But with Caitlin Clark stepping in as the new face of the team, does that change things? From the way Wheeler spoke, it's clear that she's been thinking about her future. She was careful with her words, but there was definitely a sense of uncertainty. She made it clear that she still considers herself part of the Fever for now, but she also didn't commit to anything beyond that. The reality is, at 32 years old, she's at a point in her career where winning matters more than ever. And let's be real, the Fever haven't exactly been a winning team for a while, so the question becomes, does Wheeler believe Indiana is truly ready to compete, or is she looking for a team that can give her a better shot at a championship? One of the most interesting things she said was about how many changes she's seen in Indiana over the years. She's played under 4 different head coaches in her time with the Fever. That kind of instability makes it hard to build something solid, and she acknowledged that for a long time, Indiana felt like a team that was just trying to figure things out. But now, things are different. She described how early in her career she wasn't sure if she would sink or swim in Indiana. She admitted that she wasn't always confident that her spot was secure. That's a big deal, because even though Wheeler has had a strong career, it hasn't always been easy. She's had to prove herself every single year. And now, as a veteran, she's facing another challenge, proving that she still belongs on this team. The addition of Caitlin Clark changes everything, and Wheeler knows it. She's been a leader for this team, but when you bring in a player like Clark, someone who is expected to take over the offense, run the show, and become the new face of the franchise, where does that leave Wheeler? Does she take on more of a mentorship role? Does she still get significant minutes? Or is she slowly being phased out as the Fever move into a new era? That's where things get tricky. Wheeler has been a fan favorite, but at this stage in her career, she needs clarity. She needs to know what her role will be, and if Indiana can't give her that, there's a real possibility that she might look elsewhere. That's something she didn't confirm, but she also didn't deny. She's been around long enough to know how this works. The WNBA is a business, and sometimes no matter how much loyalty you have to a team, you have to make a decision that's best for you. That's exactly what she's weighing right now. Does she stay and be part of this exciting new chapter in Indiana, even if her role might be reduced? Or does she find a team that will give her more playing time and a bigger chance at a title? It's not an easy choice, and the way she spoke about it on her podcast made it clear that she's still figuring it out. One thing is certain, she's not the type to stick around just for the sake of it. She's competitive, she wants to win, and if she doesn't see that happening in Indiana, she's not afraid to make a move. But at the same time, she clearly loves the Fever. She's invested in this team, and she's excited about what's happening. That's what makes this situation so complicated, because for the first time in years, Indiana finally has a chance to be a contender. And Wheeler, she has to decide if she wants to be part of it. Her comments made it clear that she respects Caitlin Clark, she sees the potential in this team, and she knows that Indiana is on the rise. But the big question remains, where does she fit into all of this? The way she spoke, it sounded like she wants to stay, but only if she still has a real role on this team. If not, well, let's just say that this might not be the last time we hear about Erica Wheeler and free agency rumors, because one thing is for sure, she's not going to be sitting on the bench just to watch the Fever grow. She wants to be part of the action, and if Indiana can't give her that, someone else will. And that's where things get really interesting, because the Fever are building something special, but will Wheeler still be there when it all comes together? That's the big question, and the answer? It's coming sooner than you think. As the WNBA continues to evolve, one thing is becoming clear. The Indiana Fever are no longer just another team. They are at the center of one of the most exciting transformations in recent league history, and Erica Wheeler knows it better than anyone. But with transformation comes change, and Wheeler, she's caught right in the middle of it. After her recent podcast interview with Kelsey Mitchell, fans were left wondering, is Erica Wheeler staying with the Fever, or is she looking for a new opportunity elsewhere? In part 1, we talked about how she's seen it all in Indiana, from the struggles to the coaching changes to the uncertainty. She's been through it all, but now the Caitlin Clark era is changing everything. So where does that leave Wheeler? Her comments in the podcast gave us a lot to think about, but there's more to unpack, because this situation isn't just about her future. It's about how the Fever are constructing their new identity. The Fever haven't been contenders for years, but now they have the talent, the national attention, and a new leader in Caitlin Clark. The tricky part, figuring out how to balance veteran leadership with the need to build around Clark. And that's where Erica Wheeler's situation gets even more complicated. On the podcast, she spoke about how much change she's witnessed in Indiana, 4 different head coaches in her time with the team, a constantly shifting roster, a franchise that until now never had the stability it needed to compete. But now, for the first time in years, the Fever have a real plan, and that plan, it revolves around Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, and Kelsey Mitchell. That's the core of this team moving forward. Wheeler knows it, she respects it, but it also means that her role is no longer guaranteed, and that's a hard pill to swallow for any veteran player. Because here's the reality, Wheeler is still a talented guard, she still has value. But if the Fever are shifting their focus to youth and future development, does she fit into that picture? That's why her next move is so important. She's at a crossroads. Does she embrace a smaller role in Indiana, staying as a mentor while still contributing off the bench? Or does she look for a new opportunity? One that would give her a bigger role and a real shot at competing for a title? There's no easy answer. On one hand, staying in Indiana makes sense. The Fever are finally headed in the right direction. The team is exciting, the fan base is growing, the energy around the franchise is electric, and let's be honest, playing alongside Caitlin Clark is an opportunity in itself. Clark is one of the most hyped rookies in WNBA history. Playing with her means more exposure, more national TV games, and more opportunities to be seen. That alone is a huge incentive to stay. But on the other hand, what if her minutes start to disappear? What if the Fever decide to prioritize developing younger players over keeping veterans like Wheeler in the rotation? That's where things get tricky, and Wheeler knows it. She's been in the league long enough to understand how this works. She's seen teams move on from veteran players before. And if she sees the writing on the wall, she might decide to leave before she gets pushed out. So if Wheeler does decide to leave, where could she go? That's where things get really interesting, because several teams could use a veteran point guard like Wheeler. She may not be in her prime anymore, but she still brings leadership experience and a solid floor presence, all things that contending teams need. A few teams come to mind. The Dallas Wings. They're in need of a veteran guard to help balance out their backcourt. The Washington Mystics. They're in a rebuilding phase but could use a steady veteran presence. The Minnesota Lynx. They're adding pieces and trying to get back to championship form. And what about a return to the Atlanta Dream? That's a team that's on the rise, and Wheeler has history there. The point is, she has options. If she wants to keep playing significant minutes, there are teams that would be willing to give her that chance. But leaving Indiana isn't an easy choice. Because here's the thing, Wheeler is loved in Indiana. She's been through the worst times with this franchise, and now that they're finally getting national attention, does she really want to walk away? That's the dilemma. On the podcast, she talked a lot about her journey with the Fever, the struggles, the uncertainty, the growth. But the way she spoke about Caitlin Clark really stood out, because she's not bitter about Clark coming in and taking the spotlight. She's not jealous. She's embracing it. That says a lot about who Wheeler is as a player and a person. She's a leader. She understands the bigger picture, and she knows that Clark's success means more success for the entire team. But knowing that and accepting a reduced role are two different things, because let's be real, Wheeler is a competitor. She's not the type to just sit on the bench and watch. So if the Fever can't guarantee her a real role, she's going to have to make a tough decision. Stay and accept whatever role they give her, or leave and find a team that still sees her as a key player. That's what she's weighing right now, and it's not an easy choice, because both options have risks. If she stays in Indiana, she might get pushed to the side as the team focuses on its young core. If she leaves, she might have to start over with a new team, new system, and new expectations. But one thing is clear, whatever she chooses, she's going to do it on her terms. Wheeler has never been the type to let others decide her fate. She's earned the right to make this decision for herself. And whichever way she goes, one thing is certain, she's not done yet. So, what happens next? That's the big question, because as much as this is about Wheeler's future, it's also about the direction of the Indiana Fever as a whole. They're building something special, and Wheeler has to decide if she's going to be part of it, or if it's time to move on. Either way, the WNBA world will be watching. Because this isn't just about one player, it's about a franchise stepping into a new era, and where Wheeler fits into that picture, we're about to find out. So, what do you guys think? Will Erica Wheeler stay in Indiana and help lead the Fever to a new era, or is she ready to move on? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because I want to hear what you think about her future. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into Erica Wheeler's plans in the Fever's transformation, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel for more WNBA updates. we're going to be covering everything happening with Caitlin Clark, the Fever, and the rest of the league.